Welcome back to Echoed Stories. Get comfortable, it's story time, let's dive in.
My wife's phone buzzed at 3 a.m. I wasn't trying to be a spy, but the screen stayed lit long enough for me to see the name. It was my brother, Mark. The message was just 3 words. It's done tonight. My heart didn't just drop, it turned to ice. I've spent 10 years building this life, the house, the business, the family. And in 1 second, I realized I was a stranger in my own home. As every memory of the last decade flashed before my eyes like a car crash in slow motion. The birthdays, the late nights at the workshop, the promises, all of it was a lie constructed by the two people I trusted most in this world. I didn't confront her, not then. I've learned that in business and in life, the person who speaks first usually loses. I lay there in the dark, listening to her steady breathing, wondering how someone could sleep so soundly after sending a death warrant to their marriage. I watched her for a week, watched how she smiled at me while texting him under the table during breakfast. It was nauseating. My brother, the man I bailed out of jail twice when his get-rich-quick schemes turned into felony charges. The man I gave a job to when no one else would even look at his criminal record. They thought they were being smart. They thought I was the reliable, boring one who wouldn't notice a thing because I was too busy working to provide for them. The betrayal felt like a physical weight in my chest. Constant, heavy, suffocating, but I stayed quiet. I played the part of the oblivious husband perfectly. I even made her favorite coffee in the morning, kissed her forehead, and asked how her day was going. I listened to her lies about meeting friends for lunch while I knew she was at a motel with Mark, using my credit card to pay for the room, all while I was watching my life savings slowly bleed out of our joint accounts. I tracked every cent. I saw the patterns. They weren't just leaving. They were trying to bankrupt me. The plan they had was meticulous, or so they thought from their perspective. They were moving money, my hard-earned money. I saw the bank transfers in the middle of the night, small amounts at first, a few hundred here, 1,000 there. Trying not to trigger the fraud alerts I'd set up years ago, then larger ones. They were preparing to leave the country, to take my 7-year-old daughter Lily and disappear to some coast where they could start fresh on my dime. They were talking about South America. I heard them whispering about it once when Mark thought I was still at the shop. The audacity of it, planning to take my child away from me using my own money to fund their getaway. Every time I looked at Mark during our Sunday dinners, I saw a predator. He would come over, eat my food, drink my expensive whiskey, and look me straight in the eye while planning to steal my daughter and my future. He'd pat me on the back and call me Big Brother, all while Sarah was sitting across from us, glowing with the secret of their shared treason. It took everything in me not to break his jaw right there over the mashed potatoes. So I had to go to the garage and hit the heavy bag until my knuckles bled just to keep from screaming. But I'm a patient man, I'm a mechanic. I know how to wait for the right moment to turn the wrench. I started making my own preparations. I didn't call a lawyer, not yet. Lawyers are for people who want to settle things legally, slowly, with compromises. I didn't want a compromise. I wanted a total extraction. I began liquidating assets, but not the way they thought. I moved everything into ironclad trusts they couldn't touch, under Lily's name. It's all locked away, keyed to her biometric data when she turns 25. I sold my stakes in the shop to my partner in a private deal that wouldn't show up on a standard bank search for months. To Sarah and Mark, it looked like the money was still there. But it was just a digital ghost I left for them to chase. I spent hours in my home office late at night, pretending to work on spreadsheets for the business. In reality, I was rerouting the digital trail. I made sure that every dollar they stole from the secondary accounts left a clear, undeniable footprint that led straight back to Mark's old associates, people he still owed massive amounts of money to from his last failed venture. I wasn't just letting them take the money. I was tagging it, like putting a GPS tracker on a thief. Every cent they took was a nail in the coffin Mark was building for himself. Tonight was the night. The "it's done" night, I sat in the living room in total darkness. Just me and the ticking of the clock. It was the silence of a house that was about to break into a million pieces. When Sarah finally came downstairs at 2 a.m. with her suitcase, she didn't even look surprised to see me sitting there. She didn't look guilty either. She looked relieved. Like she was finally done playing a role she hated for so long. She didn't even try to lie anymore. The mask was off, and what was underneath was unrecognizable. She told me she never loved me. She said I was stable and convenient, a good provider, but nothing more. She said Mark was the soulmate she'd been waiting for her entire life. She said they were taking the car and the cash I kept in the floor safe in the office. She actually had the nerve to ask me not to follow them, for Lily's sake. As if she hadn't already planned to kidnap my daughter and take her to a different continent. She had no idea that Lily wasn't even in her bed. I didn't scream at her. I didn't beg her to stay. I didn't even stand up. I just reached into my pocket and handed her the keys to the SUV parked in the driveway. I told her the safe was already empty, which was true because I'd moved the contents weeks ago. But she could have the car. I called it a parting gift. She laughed at me then, a cold, sharp, mocking sound that I'll hear in my nightmares for years. She called me a coward one last time and walked out the door to where my brother was waiting with the engine running. I watched their taillights fade into the distance, slowly disappearing down the long driveway, and then I picked up the phone. I didn't call the police to report a domestic dispute. I didn't call the police for the theft. I called the repo man and a private investigator I'd hired 3 months ago when I first felt the shift in the air. Everything was moving according to a different schedule now. My schedule, see, the thing they didn't know was that my brother wasn't cheating with my wife for love. Mark doesn't know the meaning of the word. He was doing it because he was desperate. He owed over $500,000 to some very dangerous people from his past criminal life. People who don't take no for an answer. He told Sarah they were running away together to start a new life. But he'd already made a deal to sell her information, her location, her new identity, and her access to what he thought was my money to those same people to clear his debt. He was going to dump her the moment they crossed the border. And the car, the SUV I generously gave them as they left, it wasn't mine. I'd sold my ownership to a shell company 3 days ago. Then I rented a high-end identical model and reported it stolen 2 hours before they left the house. I had the paperwork ready. The GPS tracker in that car was live, and the police were already pinging its location. As I sat there in the quiet house, I realized I didn't lose a wife or a brother tonight. I just finally cleared the trash out of my life. The air felt cleaner already. The twist. Mark isn't even with her anymore. He's at the airport alone right now trying to board a flight to Panama. He's currently realizing that the passport I left out for him to steal, the one he thought was his golden ticket, is a high-quality fake. It's flagged in every federal database. He's being detained by airport security for identity fraud and international money laundering as we speak. And Sarah, she's sitting on the side of a dark highway 3 towns over. I had a remote kill switch installed on that rental car. It was programmed to cut the fuel pump at a specific GPS coordinate, right in the middle of a dead zone where there's no cell service. Her phone, I used the family tracking app to remotely wipe it to factory settings. She's alone, in a stolen car, with no money, no working phone, and no idea that the soulmate she betrayed me for has already abandoned her. The most important part of the plan. Lily wasn't even in the house. I'd taken her to my mother's place yesterday for a sleepover. She's safe, she's sleeping. She'll never have to know the version of her mother that walked out that door tonight. She'll grow up knowing only that her father protected her. I'm going to go get her now. We have a long day of moving ahead of us, to a house in a different state, under a name they'll never find even if they ever get out of the mess they've made. I left the porch light on for the repo man. My work here is finally done. The house is empty. And for the first time in 10 years, I can breathe.